Continuing on now with Connor Pay, our second stanza of today's podcast. And Connor, you've talked about it. You said you were cleared earlier this week by the doctors to resume full team activities. So I'm going to start here. Kansas, Saturday night. How good is it going to feel to be back in the pads and getting ready to play in a game once again?
Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait. The surgeon, kept me on my toes all day Monday, waiting for my call, my results from my CT scan. And he called me and said, hey, the CT looked fantastic. We went over the build for the week because obviously I don't want to just jump back in 100% on day one. And so we have a good build that gives me a little more reps in practice each day, building up to the game. And, I'm just, oh, gosh, yeah, I can't wait to play. And I'm really grateful to the strength staff and the training room. They've done a great job with keeping my muscle mass on my leg when I was non-weight bearing. I haven't really lost any. Keeping me in shape, to be able to come back. And obviously there's nothing like football shape. Like playing football is the only way to get into football shape. So looking forward to the practice reps this week for that. But it's going to make that transition a lot faster because they've kept me in shape and I think part of me feels like Phyllis was just coming up with crap just to make my life suck on an assault bike. But he probably had some fun with it. But regardless, it kept me in somewhat shape. If round is a shape, it kept me in that shape. But no, I can't wait to be back, man. It's just, you want to do it for your teammates, man. I want to help the team win.
Now, Bryce has an interesting question that relates to this, Connor. He says this: are there extra precaution that Connor needs to take when coming back from this type of injury?
Yeah. Ironically, not so much with the bone.
Okay.
Now that the fracture is completely closed, that screw will never let this bone break again. Unless like something crazy happens, I'm like in a car accident and my foot gets smashed or, something like that. But like in sport, like this bone should never break again. And so now the bigger challenge is, okay, now we got to make sure my Achilles and calf and everything's good to go. And the most of that is up here where, it's like, okay, we got to get those neurons firing again and get you that coordination back. Because that lack of coordination is when other injuries happen. Like anything with your knee, ACLs, MCLs, all that stuff, even Achilles sometimes too, is really just because you jump back into something too quick and you're not used to doing those movements and your body doesn't quite react as fast as it normally does. And so thankfully they let me start walking over the weekend. Like I didn't have my scooter at the game. Most people saw that. And so it's like the initial soreness of like my ankle. Cause it's like when you don't use a limb like that for 5 weeks or 4.5 weeks or whatever it was, it almost felt like the coming back from a sprained ankle, or it's like I try to press and move my ankle and it's like non-responsive for that first 6 or 8 hours where it's like you got to wake it up again.
Yeah. And
so like walking over the whole weekend was awesome because my ankle feels 10 times better today than it did on Saturday. And so we've already started that process of my brain kind of making those connections again. And so that's what mainly tomorrow is going to be. I probably won't hit very much tomorrow, very little. It's going to be more a coordination day. Where it's like, make sure I'm doing all my footwork and all that stuff, non-contact. Don't put myself in any compromising positions. Then Wednesday, ease into a little more contact. Thursday, more contact. Friday, full go. And Saturday, we're good. So, yeah, the surgeon outlined the whole plan for me on how to do that safely. And thankfully, all the stuff that I've been doing the last month and a half is going to make this process a lot faster. And so I'm grateful for that. But yeah, that's kind of how it goes. It's kind of interesting stuff.
Now, I was in Lawrence, Kansas last year for your first ever Big 12 game as a football program. I made the trip out there to watch BYU take on Kansas. And unfortunately, Parker Kingston got absolutely obliterated on like the first or second play and ended up scooping.
Yeah.
You essentially were playing from behind the rest of that game. So Mark asked this question. I was going to ask it myself, but how much does like a revenge factor play into this matchup as the Jayhawks come to Provo, Utah?
I mean, obviously it plays a factor, right? Like, anybody who watched that game realized that like we got bullied a little bit in some areas, and that was kind of our welcome to the Big 12 game a little bit, right? And in some areas we probably weren't ready for it. And obviously we're a very different team now. And whenever you kind of get embarrassed like that on national TV, there's always a little bit of a revenge aspect in the sense that we want to show Kansas how different of a team we are. And obviously too, I want to beat Coach Grimes, and on a just because I find it fun. But yeah, no, it definitely plays a role, right? You want to go out and do better than you did last year for sure.
Now, the Grime dog, Grimy, he obviously coached at BYU for a time. You played for him. He's been to Baylor. Now he's at Kansas as the offensive coordinator. Have you kept in touch with him since he left BYU much, if at all?
A little bit. We've texted back and forth a few times.
Mhm.
Not so much in the last couple years. Kind of fell out of contact a little bit, but obviously we say hi to each other and we see each other after games and stuff. And he checks up on me every once in a while and stuff. And obviously I still have a ton of respect for him as a coach, and I believe he laid the foundation for me. Him and Mateos as how to be a Division I offensive lineman. They laid that foundation that I relied on for most of my career, and so I have a ton of respect for him, and I have enough respect for him to want to beat him.
Well, and that's the other thing about this is he, along with Aaron Roderick, kind of built the offense you guys run to this day. So he's got institutional knowledge of BYU, but vice versa. BYU knows what Grimy likes to do. And how much do you think that helps or hinders either team? Or is it kind of more like the Utah game where you guys essentially know what each other's going to run? Let's see who executes it better.
Yeah, I don't know. Both have been away from each other far enough to where I think the offenses have changed enough to where it's not quite the same.
Okay.
But at the same time, yeah, I think I don't think it makes that big of a difference because what he knows about us is what we know about him. And so I think it kind of balances itself out.
All right. Now, late night, obviously, it's going to be cold. It's supposed to be similar to the Utah game, high 30s, low 40s. I know
Beautiful.
you love that's football weather in Connor Pay's world. I know some guys may think it's a little bit more chilly. I had a conversation with one of your teammates last week, who I'm not going to reveal who it was, but they were like, Jake, I don't want to wear sleeves Saturday. I don't want to wear sleeves Saturday night, but I'm really considering doing it. Now, I will say this athlete on your team did end up going sleeveless. Like a lot of the guys against Utah, they decided to. I know we saw Tyler Batty walk out shirtless for pregame warmups, just trying to like cold isn't bothering me. But do you think that the guys from Lawrence are going to be a little bit jolted by the elevation, the cold, and more importantly, the you're already talking about the crowd dynamics of LES?
I would put the crowd dynamics at number one because it gets pretty cold in Kansas, doesn't it?
It does, but I'm talking more the combination of because I've had guys tell me, and in the soccer world, you run a lot more in soccer, obviously, but they've said that when guys come and play at Real Salt Lake, when it's cold weather, it's murder on your lungs because you're huffing and puffing, and it's already thinner air to begin with.
That makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. That could be challenging too. I mean, personally, I'm fired up for it because I operate way better in the cold than I do in the heat, and especially coming back.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm not going to be in full football shape in 5 days. It's probably going to take me a week or two to get my lungs back fully. And so I'm going to be loving that cold air. Where it's like if it was 90 degrees, I would be dying out there, and especially if we have an 8, 10, 12 play drive, I'm going to be like, wolf, I'm going to be huffing and puffing. So I'm going to be it's weird. I don't know. I guess most people are like this, but me especially, it's a lot easier to just keep rocking and rolling in the cold than it is in the hot.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. Now, the last thing I got on this game is I take it that you're anticipating you're going to be starting Saturday night, even if you're not, I say 100% full fitness, as it were.
Yeah. The nice thing is fitness can be managed a little bit in a game, and I think I'm definitely going to be fine. I've done it enough times now to I kind of know where my gauge is, at this point. And the only time I think that I'd be really gassed is if we had a drive that goes more than like 12 plays.
Okay.
if we cross that mark, I might not be in shape for play 13, 14, 15, you know. But hopefully there's a breakage at some point, a media timeout or something. If I get one of those, I'll be good to
Bruce, get ready, man.
go.